Let's set the scene. The marble floors of Malfoy Manor gleam under enchanted chandeliers. A hush falls over the gala crowd as the doors swing open. And in walk the Weasleys. Yes, those Weasleys. Arthur Weasley, dressed in emerald green robes threaded with gold, strides in like he owns the ministry. Because, well, practically, he does. Molly follows with quiet confidence, nodding at socialites who once called her a blood traitor. They nod back, politely, carefully. Behind them come the next generation, Ginny in silver silk, dazzling like a Quidditch star. Fred and George in coordinated dragonhide tuxedos. Ron, carrying a custom wand from Grigorovich's private vault and a broomstick no one dares identify, because it hasn't even hit the market yet. This isn't a fantasy, this is an alternate reality. A wizarding world where the Weasleys didn't grow up in a lopsided house with hand-me-down robes. No secondhand wands, no spellotape holding family heirlooms together. In this version of the timeline, the Weasleys struck gold, metaphorically and literally. They're not just rich, they're powerful, respected, envied. Gone is the image of Molly hand-washing cauldrons while stretching a dozen sausages into dinner for 9. Now she manages a full estate staff of house elves, reluctantly at first, and oversees one of the most impactful wizarding charities in Britain. And Arthur, let's just say his quirky obsession with Muggle plugs turned into a multi-billion galleon energy breakthrough that revolutionized how the wizarding world powers its homes. They didn't just upgrade the Burrow, they bought out the land, rebuilt it as a magical estate, and renamed it the Burrow as a nostalgic joke. Except this Burrow has 42 rooms, an indoor Quidditch simulator, and enchanted self-cooking kitchens. The Weasleys are now the family other families gossip about, and not for being poor. But here's the real question. If they had always been this rich, if they'd grown up in luxury, dressed in silk, respected at every level of wizarding society, would they still be the Weasleys we fell in love with? Let's find out. The butterfly effect of wealth. The first ripple in this timeline begins not with galleons falling from the sky, but with a ministry memo. In this reality, the misuse of Muggle artifacts office isn't a dead-end desk job. It's the hottest department in the ministry. Why? Because Arthur Weasley's fascination with Muggle tech doesn't make him a joke. It makes him a visionary. Instead of being mocked for asking what a rubber duck is, Arthur is recognized as the bridge between two worlds. He's promoted fast. He's placed in charge of magical Muggle innovation, tasked with protecting wizarding secrecy while helping the magical world keep up with Muggle advances. And then it happens. A chance meeting. A small prototype. A startup making magical power converters. Devices that pull ambient magic from the air and safely power cauldrons, wireless sets, even floating laundry systems. Arthur loves the idea and offers to help test it. They give him a tiny share in the company as thanks. That share, it explodes. Within 5 years, Arthur Weasley becomes one of the wealthiest wizards in Britain, all from believing that Muggles aren't stupid, just different. He invests again, and again. Each time, it works. The Burrow changes, but not overnight. At first, they reinforce the walls, magically straighten the staircases, and replace the clunky fireplace flue system with a modern, self-filtering portal. But as the family grows and the gold flows, they eventually outgrow their home entirely. So they build a new one, still called the Burrow, but now it's a sprawling magical estate outside Ottery St. Catchpole. Ginny has her own training pitch. The twins build a prototype lab. There's a magical greenhouse, a dragon-proof garage, and a full wing for guests. Because Harry basically lives there during the summers. Molly adapts. At first, she insists on doing the cooking and cleaning herself. But as charity events, gala invitations, and social duties pile up, she eventually gives in. With conditions. Her house elves are paid, respected, and treated like family. The Burrow becomes the gold standard for wealth with values. And with all this comes reputation. The Weasleys are no longer pitied, they're admired. Pureblood families who once mocked them now fall silent when they enter a room. Even the Malfoys are forced to acknowledge them, begrudgingly. But wealth changes more than appearances. It changes how the world sees your children. Fred and George, given capital and freedom, launch Weasley's Wizard Wheezes 5 years earlier. They skip Zonko's entirely and go straight to global. Their brand becomes a phenomenon, part prank shop, part tech empire. They're making magical toys so sophisticated even ministry departments want in. Percy climbs the ministry ladder faster than ever, now with the family name helping instead of hurting him. He becomes obsessed with status, always trying to prove that he's more than just another rich Weasley. Ginny? She gets recruited by the Holyhead Harpies at 15. She's not underestimated anymore. She trains with world-class coaches, has her own broom tech team, and becomes a sports icon before most witches pass their OWLs. And then there's Ron. Without the insecurity of secondhand robes, without Scabbers or his broken wand, Ron arrives at Hogwarts with everything he ever wanted, and all the pressure that comes with it. He's not Harry's poor best friend. He's the kid everyone expects to lead, to excel, to impress. But pressure warps things. Ron gets into Gryffindor. But the bond with Harry, not as instant, not as equal. Maybe they still become friends, or maybe Ron resents him. After all, in this version, Ron has everything, and Harry is still the boy with the scar and a vault full of gold. The butterfly effect spreads. The trio's chemistry shifts. Hermione sees Ron differently. Maybe too differently. Maybe she assumes he's like Draco. Maybe it's Neville who befriends Harry first. Maybe things fall apart before they even begin. The question isn't just what changed when the Weasleys got rich, it's who. The kid's rewritten. Because here's the thing, money doesn't just solve problems, it rewrites personalities. Fred and George, with seed funding, marketing mentors, and ministry connections, the twins never sneak around building joke products in secret. They launch Weasley's Wizard Wheezes from an actual lab, with patent lawyers and magical consultants. Their joke shop, it becomes a multi-country franchise by their third year at Hogwarts. And this time, they don't need to beg Ludo Bagman or gamble their Tri-Wizard winnings. They have investors. One of them is Arthur. The business explodes, not just because they're clever, but because this version of the world takes them seriously. No need to drop out of Hogwarts. They graduate with honors and charms and business spellcraft. They're not rebels anymore. They're Moguls. But there's a downside. Success means pressure. Fred becomes the face. George becomes the brains. And without the rebellious spark that poverty forced into their DNA, their signature chaos is polished, marketed, predictable. It's profitable. But is it fun? Percy Weasley never has to hide his ambition. He's no longer embarrassed by the family's appearance or status. Now, he embraces his pedigree like a badge of honor. And maybe that's worse, because Percy isn't driven to prove he's different. He already is. He speaks for the family at functions, attends Wizengamot luncheons, and drafts legislation before he's even 20. He's respected, and utterly insufferable. Without the tension that tore him away in the original timeline, he never leaves. But maybe he should have. He becomes the family's polished face, the safe Weasley. He builds a career, but loses his sense of humor along the way. Ron Weasley. Here's where things get truly interesting. Rich Ron isn't angry about secondhand robes. He never feels left behind. He shows up to Hogwarts in tailored dress robes, a new broomstick, and a pet owl he got at a private Aeolop's consultation. He has everything, except perspective, because wealth removed the chip from his shoulder, but also the fire from his gut. Without feeling overlooked, there's no drive to prove himself. He's confident, maybe too confident. He joins the Gryffindor Quidditch team earlier, gets noticed by the Daily Prophet, gains a fan following. But under the surface, he starts resenting the attention. He hates being the golden son of a golden family. Every mistake is magnified. Every weakness is whispered about. Worse, he doesn't bond with Harry the same way. Because Harry, in this version, is still the poor kid with trauma, while Ron is Ron the celebrity. It's awkward. They don't click. Maybe Ron joins a different friend group. Maybe it's Neville who sits with Harry on the train. Maybe the whole dynamic shifts before the sorting hat even opens its brim. Ginny Weasley becomes a name whispered with awe in the common room. She's not the shy little sister peeking around corners. She's a prodigy, trained by professionals, sponsored by international teams, decked out in personalized Quidditch gear. Coaches call her the next Gwenog Jones. Scouts attend her matches before she finishes second year, and it changes how she sees herself. Confident Ginny isn't afraid to speak up. She doesn't wait for Harry to notice her. She already has an entire fan club. They still fall for each other eventually, maybe, but it's different now. He's the boy who lived. She's the girl with the golden arm. No rescuing from a diary this time. She never needed it. But here's the subtle danger in all of this. They lose their glue. Because being poor didn't just give them problems. It gave them unity. They shared robes, stories, jokes, and frustrations. They fought over scraps but laughed about it together. They were a team, built on noise and chaos and hand-me-down sweaters. Now, they eat in separate wings of a mansion. They travel solo with enchanted trunks and personalized port keys. Their schedules are full of tutors, trainers, advisors. Everyone's doing something impressive somewhere else. Yes, they still love each other. That never changed. But love stretched across fame, influence, and public expectation starts to thin. The twins are busy running a brand. Percy's busy being proper. Ginny's booked months out. And Ron's starting to feel like the background character in his own family story. They become less like a team and more like a brand the public adores but watches carefully. One misstep, one slip of the tongue, one misunderstood prank, and it all turns. Every move is followed, every word dissected. Charity donations are judged, relationships make headlines, school scores become press releases. They're still the Weasleys, but now they're the Weasleys' trademark. The world claps for them, cheers for them, but deep down, it's waiting to catch them falling from the broom. And that pressure, that spotlight, it's about to test what they're really made of. Conflict in the spotlight. Being rich in the wizarding world isn't just about gold, it's about influence, and what you're willing to trade to keep it. And now, the Weasleys are under pressure from all sides. The first blow lands quietly. A polished man in a gray cloak arrives at the Burrow. The new one, with marble floors and security wards thicker than Gringotts' walls. He smiles, offers a glass of elf-aged port, and slides a contract across the table. It's an investment deal, huge upside, strategic partnership, massive expansion. But buried in the fine print, language that excludes Muggle-borns from executive roles. Heritage preservation, the clause says. Arthur reads it, Molly reads it. Percy pretends not to notice. It's subtle, easy to sign, easy to ignore. But Arthur doesn't ignore it. He closes the folder and says 6 words that change everything. We're not those kind of wizards. They walk away, quietly, firmly, and the whispers begin. The Malfoys take notice. Lucius hosts a new gala. Charity, of course. And this time, the invitation comes not as an insult, but as a challenge. The Weasleys attend. But this isn't the same cold marble corridor Harry once trudged through in chains. Now, the chandeliers flicker for them. The applause pauses for them. Lucius raises his glass and says it aloud. Let us toast the rise of wizarding royalty. The Weasleys have finally arrived. The crowd claps. Arthur doesn't smile. Because he knows what's happening. Lucius isn't welcoming them, he's neutralizing them. If he praises them loudly enough, the Weasleys can't speak against him without looking ungrateful. Or worse, hypocritical. And at home, the tension is rising. Ron hates being watched. He hates being quoted in the Daily Prophet for what he wore to Diagon Alley. He hates that if he doesn't donate to a Quidditch fund, people call him greedy. And if he does, they call him performative. George is exhausted from media requests. Every time he launches a new prank toy, a dozen articles analyze whether it's appropriate for a man of his stature. Ginny wants to keep playing, but sponsors expect her to be a role model, a fashion icon, and a brand, not a broom-slinging rebel with a nasty left curve. Molly feels it too. Every speech is dissected. Every smile is judged. She runs charities now, not kitchens. But at night, she wonders if she's lost something she can't get back. Being poor made them invisible. Being rich made them unforgettable. But being powerful, that made them targets. The price of power. It's nearly winter when the final test comes. The Weasleys are planning their own gala, a charity ball at the new Burrow. Not just to show off wealth, but to raise real funds for real causes. St. Mungo's expansions, Hogwarts scholarships, magical orphan relief. Everything is in place. The wizarding world is watching. That's when the offer comes. A private message. From a coalition of powerful old families, names carved into the walls of the Wizengamot, vaults older than Gringotts itself. They want to partner. They promise more than gold. They promise power, legislation, seats at the highest tables in magical government. All the Weasleys have to do is not sponsor Muggle-born outreach this time. Not publicly, not in writing, just quietly pull the funding, redirect it, let it go. No headlines, no drama. Arthur reads the letter. He's quiet for a long time. Percy argues it's politics, that they can do more good later. Molly says it feels wrong. Ginny flat out refuses. But it's Ron who says it out loud. If we say yes to this, we're not Weasleys anymore. We're just rich people with red hair. That settles it. Arthur writes back one line, respectfully declined. They fund the program anyway. They host the ball anyway. And they invite everyone, even the people those pure-blood families want erased from the room. The result? Some families don't show, some headlines are nasty, but most of the wizarding world applauds, loudly. Because the truth is, the Weasleys aren't admired because they got rich. They're admired because they didn't let wealth change them. They stayed kind, they stayed loyal, they stayed weird, they stayed Weasleys. And in doing so, they proved that money can buy a mansion, a broomstick, even a seat at the ministry. But it can't buy character. That they never had to purchase. The final spell, wealth with integrity. Time moved on, but the Burrow never lost its heart. Even with 42 rooms, a dragon-proof garage, and a Quidditch simulator in the orchard, it still felt like home. Still sounded like laughter. Still smelled like Molly's treacle tart. Fred and George built an empire. Ginny became a legend. Percy stayed insufferable, but learned to laugh again. Ron disappeared from the spotlight and into something smaller, something quieter, something finally his. And Arthur. He still put plugs in the wrong sockets, still asked Muggle cashiers how batteries worked, still tinkered with magic like it was a love letter no one else could quite translate. Molly knitted sweaters for grandkids and orphans, for charity drives and memorial auctions, and sometimes just because. No family ever went without one. And at Sunday dinners, when everyone was loud and full and fighting over seconds, she'd pause and look around the table, and smile. Harry still visited. Hermione too. The Burrow was always open, even when it had 3 gates and ministry-level wards. And the kids? They grew up chasing gnomes and running barefoot on enchanted grass, thinking this was just how life always was. They didn't know about the old Burrow. They never knew the hunger, the shame, the cold nights by candlelight. And maybe that's the whole point. Maybe all this, the money, the mansions, the gala invitations, didn't change who the Weasleys were. Maybe it just made their goodness harder to miss. The wizarding world had laughed at them, dismissed them, whispered about their patched-up robes and secondhand books. But given the chance, the gold, and the power, they didn't become like the Malfoys. They stayed kind, they stayed loud, they stayed weird, they stayed together. And in the end, they taught the world something nobody expected, that real wealth isn't counted in galleons or Gringotts vaults or Quidditch box seats. Real wealth is Sunday dinner with 9 redheads and a borrowed boy who lived, and a mum who still cries when you come home. But if the Weasleys had grown up in gold and survived it, what if the one who actually had the gold never did? What if Harry Potter was poor? Let's find out.